Yo, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Komon Underground. I'm your host, Komon. Thanks for tuning in. Again, another wonderful day. For some of you, it's evening, so good evening to some of y'all. But listen, today's a special day because I'm gonna do a twofer or a two-four. I don't know how you say it, but I'm gonna try to do 2 episodes today, and only because I'm gonna start something new today, which I basically didn't want to do, and I was kind of hesitant to do it solely based on a couple things. Actually, a lot of things, but I talked to some homies yesterday, some old school homies that I grew up with from around the neighborhoods, and they told me I needed to be a little more transparent about who I am and tell my story a little bit. And I agreed. Again, I was hesitant on some things, but now I understand what the deal is. Boom. Starting today, I'm going to be doing something called TDM Thursday. And like I said in other blogs, I was biased with giving my graffiti artists of the days to TDMs because I am a TDM. But solely based off the facts of what I understand now, it don't matter. You know what I'm saying? A bomber's a bomber no matter what crew they're in. And the crew shouldn't be the major factor whether or not a bomber is good or graffiti artist of any sort is good. So I'm gonna change that up a little bit, and I'm gonna start with TDM Thursday. So, and you guys will get your graffiti artist of the day today. Don't worry. So let me talk a little bit about me. All right. So you guys all know I am TDM crew, an OG TDM crew, second chapter of TDM from the 1996 era. And if you watched the Riddle BTB interview I did, you'll know that there was an 80s era TDM. And so we branched off and started TDM based off the 80s era TDM. So again, like one of my buddies last night, he asked me about that. Didn't completely understand it. I talked to Roski, I talked to Riddle and other guys, older TDMs from the 80s. And so basically it boils down to this family member stuff. Some family members with original TDMs from the 80s, and younger family, next generation, took the sword, and we started the same crew up in the 90s. And I'm not going to go into detail about that, not now, maybe in a later date, I might. But I did talk a lot about it in my first book, Nothing is Louder Than Silence. And listen, me being an author, and nothing to do with me trying to get rich or become famous or nothing like that. Writing that book, specifically my first book, was a learning experience for me. And I did it for therapy. It was real healthy for me to do so. But I said a lot of things in that book that I absolutely don't regret. But that were basically the foundation of what TDM crew was. And I talked a lot about other crews in Chicago and how we dealt with them and the scenario that we were in, basically being a young crew in the mid 90s and late 90s. That being said, TDM crew, my era, was probably one of the most hated crews, like one of the most hated crews in Chicago in that era. I talked to C3PO last night and he said MUL crew was hated more. I disagreed with him because I don't think MUL crew was hated more than TDM crew. So yeah, that being said, me being a blogger right now and doing social media and stuff like that, I do understand that I come from an era of TDM where everyone hated us. Didn't hate me specifically. There are some folks. There are some folks that probably hated me. And they had every right to hate me, and I'm not even mad. And I feel bad for a lot of things that I've done. I have reached out to people in the past to apologize for putting them in the hospital. And this is a fact. I was a very violent kid. And a lot of that goes back to like growing up with a violent father. My father was a fighter. My father was a gangster. My father was a cheat. He was aggressive, but he was also the sweetest, nicest fucking man on the fucking planet. He was a comedian. He was a great person. I'm a lot like him, but I grew up tough. You know what I'm saying? I had older brothers. And I mentioned my older brother earlier, I grew up with, my brother had a gangster's personality, like my father's, like my uncles. So I grew up in a man world with uncles and brothers. That being said, I grew up tough, and it took a lot of ass kickings to get me there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't win every fight that was in. You know what I'm saying? I used to fist fight my brother all the time, and my father. You know what I'm saying? So like, it was a hard way to grow up, and it was a rough patch in my life to become a man. But when I did, especially growing up on 17th and Wood in the 90s, for those of you who don't know about Pilsen or not from Chicago and heard about these areas, these Mexican communities, they were gang ridden. Like, it's something you see in movies, but you don't see enough. But and a lot of guys like me write books about it. But where I grew up on, you could not go to another neighborhood. I mean, within your community, you couldn't leave your block, or you're probably within a 3 to 4 block like area, like sector, where you couldn't go outside of the kill zone. You know what I'm saying? Because like, if anyone came in your neighborhood, then they would obviously probably jump out on you because they thought you were in a gang in that neighborhood. And if you went to their neighborhood, you definitely get jumped. And for me growing up and deciding to be a bomber or graffiti artist and not be a gangster was not an easy choice, because back then gangs didn't really accept us as neutrons. They didn't accept us as graffiti artists, because here's the deal, we brought heat to the block. So a lot of graffiti artists, and you'll hear about this in other blogs other people do, but we didn't bomb up our own neighborhoods. We used to go to other neighborhoods and paint. And that's only because we didn't want to bring heat to our own neighborhood. Now, in my circumstance, I couldn't really go to other neighborhoods and paint because I was so brainwashed with the idea of that, like, that's the D's hood, I'm not going in that neighborhood because they're gonna fuck me up. Or that's the Kings, or that's the Lasas, or the Counts, you know what I'm saying? I was like, I'm not going over there because I'm gonna get fucked up. So I figured out, and a couple other of my friends figured out, was like, the easiest way for us to bomb and paint in these other neighborhoods was to climb up between the tracks on 18th Street, like the L station, the train station, like where I live by. You can climb up between the tracks or climb up on a building and jump on the tracks, and we would walk the train tracks after the train stopped running after around midnight. So if the train stopped running, we basically were in the clear, other than a few ghost trains. I almost got hit by a ghost train once or twice. But what's dope about Chicago is that the tracks align houses and buildings, so on both sides. So you can walk to another neighborhood on the tracks and jump down onto a building and paint the side of someone's house. Now this is crazy because there are some graffiti rules that TDMs and a lot of other crews and a lot of other bombers like Temper, and I'm not going to mention name or names, a lot of other bombers didn't care. We painted the size of people's houses, and that's fucked up because I would have been pissed off if somebody painted my house. But it was the way it was. Like, Riddle told me a story last night where he was doing the same thing I used to do, and he jumped down on a house on the north side by the Douglas Blue, and they shot at him. They came out the house and started shooting at him. You know what I'm saying? It was really dangerous. I mean, listen, it was dangerous, but it was what we did. You know what I'm saying? Like, we took that into account. We knew that if we got caught by the gangs, we're gonna get fucked up real bad. If we got caught by the cops, I'll get to that, but we were gonna get fucked up real bad. If we got caught by the persons that lived in the house that we were bombing, we're probably gonna get fucked up real bad. So it was just a real dangerous scenario. And then just the danger of getting hit by a train or falling on a third rail and getting electrocuted. It was just crazy what we were doing. We were nuts, but we were kids and we had a lot of courage. I don't even know why, but we did. So that was the case. So that's how I was able to get my name up around these areas that I would not normally go into during the day or at night on foot or even in car most times because it's too dangerous. That being said, like, if I did get caught by the police in another neighborhood, for example, if I was in the 2-6 neighborhood and this happened, I got caught up by the cops painting, and back then in the 90s, police officers didn't like graffiti artists, didn't like taggers and bombers and shit. Police officers fucking hated us. And best case scenario, which has happened to me and my friends, they'll beat the shit out of us and let us go. I've got my ass kicked pretty bad by the police multiple times. Worst case scenario is a fucking Friday, and they take you in and they keep you all weekend because you can't get see a judge till Monday, and that's happened to me as well. I've had people bail me out. My cousin bailed me out. Thank you, bro. I'm never gonna forget that. But I had to spend a week in the county, and the worst part is wherever you get locked up at as a graffiti artist, when the cops are doing your report right there, and they got you handcuffed to the bar, when they're filing your report of what you were doing and where you were, they fucking write down that you are in the gang that's from that neighborhood. So one time I was there getting locked up, and I'm fucking chained to this bar. They're like, all right, well, you're a 2-6 and this and this and that. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, dude, I'm not a 2-6. It's like, you're a 2-6. What are you doing over here? And I'm like, yo, I'm not a 2-6. Like, what are you doing by 38th and Albany? I'm like, yeah, but I'm not a 2-6. I'm from 17th and Wood. It's like, well, right here, because you're right here and you're doing this, you're a 2-6. And he wrote that shit down in my report. So I'm like, fuck. If I get locked up and I go inside, I'm gonna have to fucking bang 2-6. Or I can't say I'm a neutron. It's the way it worked, and you'll hear about this from other old school bombers when you got locked up and shit like that. And even if you got stopped in the street, like the disciples, they didn't accept neutron. Like, you had to be something, and they make you flip a set that they thought you were or whatever. But no matter what, you were gonna get squashed and smashed. No matter what. So if you went inside, if you try to claim neutron, you try to say I'm a graffiti artist and all this stuff, unless you were clicked with some crew or gang that was locked up already, if you were literally, if you had a family member that was like a big timer in the gang, or you were clicked somehow, that's really the only way you get protection. Yeah. So I mean, it was just the way it was, and the cops knew that shit, so they would fuck with us, and they knew that fucking gangs didn't like us either because we brought heat to the neighborhood. But on the other hand, specifically for me and other bombers from Pilsen, the bishops, shout out to the bishops. If I would go painting, I would go talk to like one of the heads, and I would say, hey, yo, I'm gonna be out tonight and I'm gonna be painting. And like they didn't like it because, again, it brings heat to the neighborhood and shit like that. But there was a caveat. They're like, listen, Komon, you can fucking go painting, but you gotta throw us up. I'm like, well, then you gotta watch out. You gotta like whistle and shit if 5-0's coming. And so that worked. Like, I would throw them up. There was times where I would fucking throw up the bishops and shit like that. Throw up a B. I wasn't a bishop, but I lived in their neighborhood, and it was politics. It was graffiti politics, and it was gang politics. You know what I'm saying? And then again, TDM, one of the reasons why we were hated is because we were a gangster crew. And this was just coming off that gangster era. You know what I'm saying? I was a gangster. I wasn't so much a hip hopper as I was more of a gangster personality, because where I grew up from. You know what I'm saying? I dressed with fatigues, you know what I'm saying? I wore bandanas and shit like that. Like, I wore dickies. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had a real gangster personality. I dressed like one, and I grew up in the neighborhood like that. You know what I'm saying? So, I had a bald head. Got my first tattoo when I was 13. Like, it was just the way it was. And that being said, the politics of the gangs and the politics of the graffiti, we kind of had to work hand in hand for both of us to be successful in the neighborhood. And the TDMs picked up on that real quick. Like I had mentioned in that Real BTB interview, TDM crew at the time, in its heydays in the mid 90s, we had a bishop in the crew, we had a disciple in the crew, we had a count in the crew, still have counts in the crew. You know what I'm saying? We had like party crew members in crews and stuff like that, and it wasn't hard to navigate through that, because the way, and we'll talk about TDM and the structure in a second, but the way we were set up was we were a crew, but we were branched off at different parts of Chicago. And so I had crew members in different parts of Chicago where I wouldn't really go to their neighborhood and knock on their door. You know what I'm saying? We would all have to meet in a centralized, safe location for us to have a meeting. You know what I'm saying? Like, when I started the Pilsen branch in the 90s, there wasn't any TDMs in Pilsen. And I was like, well, how am I gonna do this? So when fucking Chiba, love you, brother, when Chiba handed me the reins of Pilsen, he's like, yo, Komon, you're gonna have to fucking find the talent over there, you know what I'm saying? And along with my cousin, he helped me a lot too. So like, well, I gotta find talent. It wasn't that hard, because I was painting, and all the bombers in Pilsen eventually found me, because Pilsen's a small community. They found me like, yo, you're Komon and shit. I see you up on the blue. I see you doing this and this and that. I see you hit that spot. And I'm like, yo, what you write? And you know what I'm saying? And then I would give them a requirement. They want to be TDM, I give them the requirements. And the requirement, for some of you who don't know, is like every month they've got to do like 7 fill-ins. A fill-in is a TDM piece, just nothing crazy, just a TDM or TDMC filled in with nice colors and shit. It has to look, you know, it has to look decent, and it has to be in a nice spot where you can see from the street or you can see from a train. You know what I'm saying? So they had to do 7 of those, and they had to do some spell outs too, but it wasn't always necessary to do spell outs, but they enjoy doing spell outs. Basically, a spell out is when you take the acronym of TDM and you do like 3 drink minimum, you spell that out, or you know what I'm saying? So the Deaf Man or the Dope Mob, you know, you spell that out. You do it roller paint, you do that with spray cans and stuff like that. So we would do stuff like, you know, just fun stuff. And graffiti was fun. So, I mean, I told you about all the dangers, but it was a fun thing for us to do. And it brought us together, and all kinds of people from different parts of the city that we would normally not see or talk to because we went to different high schools. It brought us together, and it was a really dope thing. That's what kind of separated us personality-wise and the way we moved compared to Chicago gangs. So, like I said, at that time, I was building up TDM in Pilsen. Other TDMs in different branches were hesitant to come to Pilsen and visit us, to come check us out and shit. Over time, that eased up. You know what I'm saying? Like, they started feeling like, okay, well, fuck, these guys are good here. They know a lot of the cats over here. I had TDMs in the D's neighborhood. Shout out to you guys. You guys know who you are. And then I had the Bishop TDMs, and I had TDMs in the Counts neighborhood and stuff like that. So they kind of see, well, they already got established in Pilsen. So then the boys from the other branches, the 3-5s, the Westerns, the Ciceros, and shit like that, they started to come to Pilsen and feel comfortable hanging out with us and things like that. It was just the way gang culture was. It was hard to move as a graffiti artist unless you were clicked in somehow, linked into that culture. And a lot of times it didn't work like that. You know what I'm saying? No matter who I knew or who I talked to or what kind of friends I made in other different neighborhoods, I still got jumped all the time. I got jumped by the D's probably around 6 or 7 times. I got jumped by the Land Kings. I've been stabbed by the Land Kings. Listen, you're never safe no matter what. And another way that we used to always meet each other, other graffiti artists, because like I said, we were all painting, but it didn't mean that we all knew each other. And the way we met each other is if we went to house parties. And every weekend there was a house party in any different neighborhood in Chicago, and there was multiple house parties. But we knew what house parties were, like for what crew. And word got out. I don't even remember how we found out. There was always someone showed up like, yo, Air Crew's having a house party, or freaking A-Dub's having a house party, or you know what I'm saying? Or these guys are having house parties. And we would just show up. And the way, like again, TDM was hated because the way TDM used to roll up the house parties, we would go there like 10 to 15 deep, just guys, and we wouldn't have any girls with us. And these dudes were like, man, fuck that, man. These guys are just showing up, you know, turning this place into a sausage fest. And another thing was like, we were all bad kids from the neighborhood, and we liked to fight. I specifically liked to fight. And we would, 9 times out of 10, almost every single house party we'd been to, we got into a fight with somebody. There was a brawl. So nobody wanted us to go to their parties. And I'm not telling any lies right now. So if anybody sees this and they want to comment on it, you got a story about fucking you telling people don't tell the TDMs about this party, dude, that was a real thing. And when we found out that you guys didn't want us there, we went there on purpose, and we called all the boys from all the different sections and branches of the crew to meet us there. So that was one of the things. But there were times where we fucking got duped, got hoodwinked, and we went to parties that we thought were a graffiti crew party, and it turned out to be a gangster party. And those are different scenarios, because that means we were gonna, like, whether or not we wanted to, we were gonna get in a fight with the gang. And we didn't always win those. I'm telling you right now, because this is the way it was. Our graffiti politics, we didn't carry guns, you know what I'm saying? We did carry some knives on us and shit like that, but we weren't strapped, and we weren't into like just going out looking for motherfuckers to beat up. And so we weren't always ready for that. We just wanted to have a good time like everyone else, but we were prepared to fight if we had to fight. that being said, we got hoodwinked a lot where we show up to a spot, throwing up our set, like, yo, what up, TDM crew's here, and it might be a fucking Lion King fucking party, and that's it. It was game over. Like, we're fighting the Lion Kings until fucking either one of us ends up in the hospital, which I have been in the emergency room over those motherfuckers. So it's just the way it is, you know what I'm saying? And not to make myself sound like a badass, because I'm the sweetest fucking nicest guy on the planet, and I've got real like calm and shit like that, and discipline with my personality and with my anger and shit like that, because I was in the military, and the military really teaches you how to hold all that anger in and shit like that, and use it to your advantage, you know what I'm saying? And talking about being in the military, it's funny that only a couple people that I've ever served with in the military know anything about my like graffiti past. I never talked about any of this stuff to anybody in the military. And the reason why is because, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I felt like what being a vandal was like the worst thing in the world to those people. I thought they would not understand, and I would make myself either look immature, stupid, or like a criminal. So I would always keep this side of me secret. So when I used to go painting in Germany with I was in the army and I was painting, but I was, like I said, I'm Batman. I had made one real good friend from Las Vegas. Shout out to you, Carl. He would go out with me at night and go painting, but he didn't paint. He just watched me. Like, not watched me, but like watched out for me, made sure the cops didn't come and stuff like that. So I would go paint spots, and he would, you know what I'm saying, tell me, hey dude, get down there, someone's walking by, or you know what I'm saying? But it was very easy. That being said, it was very easy to bomb in Germany and stuff like that. But yeah, so I was still painting when I was in the army. And again, so back then, it wasn't like I could just share my flicks or put my graffiti online, like on MySpace and stuff like that, because I had to hide that side of me from the army, because I was afraid of getting caught and getting kicked out of the army, and for people to look at me like a piece of shit for being a graffiti artist, because it wasn't popular to be a graffiti artist in the real early 2000s and stuff like that. And I already knew that was something that I had to keep near and dear to me and keep to myself, so I didn't tell anybody about it. Now I'm out, I can say whatever the fuck I want to say. So again, like I said, this is TDM Thursday now. So every Thursday I'm gonna put out a blog just talking about me, talking about my experiences being TDM crew. And it's cool because, you know, we're older now. I was talking to my homie yesterday. Shout out to you, C3PO. We were talking about, like, yeah, you know, I bet you right now, Cat said, you know, we have beef with in the 90s are probably hating me right now. Like, man, this motherfucker, you know what I'm saying? Like, because they hated us back then. But even he said, and I agreed, I'm like, you know what? When I was doing the Rome interview, I gave a shout out to Cure Air Crew, dude. I give a shout out to all them boys, bro. Like, yeah, we had problems with them and shit like that in the 90s and stuff. No big deal. We were kids, man. We were just kids doing kid shit. And the little stupid beefs that we had, the fights, because we did get in a lot of fights, them fist fights and things like that. People got hurt. People got stabbed and hit by cars. But that was just childish shit that we were doing, you know what I'm saying? Now we're all older. We're in our 40s. We're in our 50s. And it's nothing but love, because listen, they were doing the exact same thing we were doing, just in different areas and different neighborhoods. So things about graffiti, it's a very competitive sport, and there's a lot of hate involved. And that's why I really wanted to do this blog, was to show love, because there's way too much hate in the graffiti world. And Chicago specifically, and I have to say this because I have been lucky enough to travel the world. You know what I'm saying? I lived in Italy for 4 years. I lived in Germany for 9 years. I've been overseas, all over. I've been all over the Middle East, Africa. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm in Romania. I've been in Mexico. You know what I'm saying? All over the United States. And I know graffiti culture. I met a lot of graffiti artists and different graffiti crews all over the world. And so I know how it's structured and things like that. Chicago, right now, I'm telling you, there's nothing like Chicago. So like, and even Chicago's crazy for Chicago. So I'll get into that right now real quick, just so I branch out from it. So like, for example, back in the 90s or in the early 2000s, the north side graffiti politics of Chicago was different than the south side graffiti politics. There's a real good example of that. And I heard this story from one of my real big homies and shit that I respect. So if a north side graffiti artist came to the south side to hang out with a south side graffiti artist, which was very normal, there was no issues with that. We had no beef with north side and anything like that. But we had walls on the south side, and we had the CMK BTB walls, the walls of style, the walls of grace. We had walls all over the south side of Chicago that belonged to crews or belonged to the neighborhood, and it was cool for the neighborhood crews, wherever they were, could hit that wall if they collabed together and shit like that. There was no beef over it. But if a north sider didn't understand the politics of how the walls work, and so if a north sider just came and said, oh shit, look, it's a permission wall, you can just hit it whenever you want, even during the day, and then we'll go over there and paint over somebody's piece, yo, that's smash on site. Like, they didn't understand that. Some of them did understand that, but some of them didn't. But if they got caught by anybody that, you know what I'm saying, that control those walls, you better be singing some apologies, man, because that was smash on site. So like, there was graffiti rules. Number one, like, if you were gonna stamp somebody, and I've stamped people. I admitted stamping MUL to an MUL yesterday, an OG MUL, and it was all good, you know what I'm saying, because they knew I stamped them, but it was old stuff. So there's rules to stamping, and I'll get to that. So like, first of all, if there's a piece or a fill-in or whatever that's just old and it's been there rocking at the same spot for, I don't know, a year, 2 years, 3 years, and the bomber had never came and updated it or stamped it himself and put something better, you know what I'm saying, it just dried out and started to fade. Okay, you go over there and stamp it. If you do that, you have a couple options. You can reach out to the bomber or the crew and be like, yo, I want to hit this spot. You're there, can I stamp it? That's the best route you can go. They'll probably say no, but that's a good route to go to save yourself any grief or any future wars with that person or the crew. Second thing is, if you don't do that or you don't know the motherfucker and you can't reach out to them, then when you stamp it, you have two options. You roll over what is already there so nothing of their original shit can be seen, or you paint something bigger and better, but still make sure you can't see anything that was there previously. Because if you stamp it where you can see the top and the bottom or sides of what was originally there, and you stamp it right in the middle, that's beef right off the bat. If someone did that to me, that's spit. That, you know, for all of you OGs out there that watch Beat Street, that's a spit move. That's, you know what I'm saying? So that was beef right off the bat. So that's just rules. If some of you out there, the new generation that don't know that, now you know that, just keep that in mind. That's automatic smash on site. And I've been in that scenario, you know what I'm saying? For sure, I stamped one of my homies, became one of my best friends. And we got, as soon as he seen me, it was fucking on, you know what I'm saying? We fought. It was on, but again, I was young and I was thinking the same, like, oh, this shit's whack, I'm better than him, so I'm gonna stamp him. And he turned out to be TDM as well, and we were TDM together, and I let him live with me in my house when he needed a place to live. But that's just how it is, that Chicago culture, man. We'll fight each other, or we'll hug each other and be best friends right after it. You know what I'm saying? Like, those are the good old days. Back now, it's like there's no such thing really as fighting. They shoot each other and kill each other and stuff like that, or they beef online. But our beef used to be face to face. You know what I'm saying? And we used to handle whatever our beef was right there on the spot, no matter where it was, no matter what time it was. If you had beef with somebody, you handled it right there and then. And as soon as it was over, win or lose, it doesn't matter. You guys hugged it out. Fucking had a beer and you went bombing together, or you went to a party together. That is how it was done, 100%. Any other way other than that, and it escalated further, they turned into a war, which wars are fucking ridiculous, and it's time consuming and expensive and dangerous, because not only are you stealing fucking spray paint from Home Depot, because back then they didn't sell spray paint in Chicago because of us. So you can get caught stealing, and or get caught bombing, because you were bombing fucking probably 10 times as much than you normally would, because you were at war with a crew. So wars are fucking a pain in the ass. And then you had to watch everywhere you were fucking going. You couldn't go to any party, because if you're not grouped up enough with your boys, so you can be outnumbered everywhere you're at, you get jumped out on. It was wild. So fuck wars. So that was the way we handled business. Now, other part of it, you see the north side and the south side, they had different graffiti politics. Same thing with like California and Houston and Georgia, New York, and all over Europe and shit like that, the politics are a lot different, man. Like their crews, they have a structure, but it's a lot different in terms of structure. See, in the 90s, the way our structures was you were required to paint. So like if you joined the crew, you were joining a crew to make the crew better. You know what I'm saying? There are folks that were solo that joined the crew because the crew was on the map and they knew that they would hire their status as a graffiti artist if they were in a specific crew. And there's a fact to that. And you know what I'm saying? Like when I was younger, before I was TMS and I was writing BTR and stuff like that, in the 93, 94, 95 era. Of course I wanted to be TNS crew. Of course I wanted to be TMS. Of course I wanted to be DC5. You know what I'm saying? Because those were crews, X-Men crew. They were already on a level to where I was like, man, I want to be in those crews because I already know my status will go higher just being connected to them. So that's understandable. And I didn't do that. And it's only because of my personality. But I didn't jump on that boat. I was like, I want to start from scratch with someone, with something that we can build together and become and have that status, than to already jump on a boat that's already been completely built. And that was a good decision that I made, and I stand by that decision. But so when I'm talking about structure, we have requirements, and we did those requirements, and I explained those requirements. We also had branches because we couldn't move, you know what I'm saying, the way we needed to move to be an all-city crew. And that's another thing, just being all-city. It's hard to be all-city in Chicago unless you have connections and you can move throughout the city to do it. You know what I'm saying? And I know it's got a lot easier now, but back then, because of hood politics, gang politics, it was really hard to do. And when it came to us, you know what I'm saying, deciding who can be in a crew and who's gonna get dropped from the crew, that was a real hard decision for a lot of us to make, because ego has a lot to do with graffiti artists, dude. Like, we're all egomaniacs because, first of all, we chose our names because we like our names. We chose our names because it fits our personality. You know what I'm saying? So, of course, when I go bombing, I want to put my name up because I want to be known in the city. Like, every graffiti artist wants to have their name up. Back in the day, it was like, yo, this guy's bombing his name too much. He's not putting up the crew enough. And so a lot of times, like I talked to one of my homies in California, we talked about this, but a lot of times bombers will go out and put up their name and then tag the crew next to it. And for a lot of graffiti politics, it was like, yo, this guy is just in the crew to get, you know what I'm saying, to get kudos for being a part of the crew, but he's really out here trying to put his name up and make himself famous, not the crew. And so there's people that feel differently about that on both sides. Trust me, I know both sides of it, and I agree with both sides. I have no issues with it because I do the same thing. I used to do commons and I used to do TDMs. I still do commons and I still do TDMs. You know what I'm saying? But I know guys that only would paint their name and put the crew next to it. And I knew the guys that only do TDMs, and I'll be honest with you, some of them regret it now. You know what I'm saying? They wish they had done their name more. And that's all good, you know what I'm saying? But it was still fun. I mean, in reality, to get to the point of that is that graffiti was a hobby. And only for about 10% graffiti is something more than a hobby. You know, you can make a living off of some of these guys that are able to sell canvases and things like that, get paid for permission walls and murals and things like that. They can make a living out of it. But for the rest of the 90%, graffiti is a hobby. You don't grow out of it because it's who you are and what you like doing. But at some point, when you start working, you got a family, you got a house and shit, it's not worth risking, taking any risks at all. You know what I'm saying? But for us, the window for being a graffiti artist is very small, probably like 4, 5, 6 years. And so during that time, you have a small period of time to make yourself known in the city. You got an even smaller amount of time to try to become all city. And it's just a hard thing to do because it only takes a couple arrests where, you know what I'm saying, you can't do graffiti anymore. You ain't even in that time. You're going to be cleaning up the city all the time on freaking, whatever they call that shit, I forgot. But you know what I'm saying? Only a couple times you're going to get arrested. You got to pay for courts. It's to a point. No one gets lucky enough to go 5, 6 years without getting locked up or getting jumped or anything like that. Back then, it wasn't possible. We all had fucking crazy shit going on where it was hard to paint. And sometimes painting, when we start, it's the first priority. But after all the bullshit that we go through with the wars, with the cops, with the gangs, at some point it just gets tiresome. and you lose motivation. And it's up to the crew, whoever the crew leader is, the crew head, the crew president is, to keep you motivated, to keep you going, and keep you painting and shit like that. And that comes with us throwing parties and things like that. We throw nitrous parties and keg parties and stuff like that to just show brotherhood and what's the word, like to be comrades. I'm really bad. I have a real bad memory, guys, so you guys know. So show camaraderie, for us to get together, and it makes us feel good to be together and shit like that, because it's a real hard life to live. Like I said, most of the time we live in the darkness, and a lot of us, and that means a lot of us get addicted to drugs and become alcoholics and things like that. And it's a real sad story. I know a lot of homeless graffiti veterans and shit like that. It's wild. Like it's a wild life to live. But back to the structure and everything like that. For example, in California, their politics is they have to throw up the crew. All right. They have to throw up the crew. Same thing in Europe. It's the opposite. They're not so much about throwing up the crew. They're all about throwing up their names. You know what I'm saying? So now in Chicago, from what I'm hearing from a lot of my friends that are still in the game, that are still bombing, shout out to them, and a lot of my OG friends that are retired and they're doing other things, galleries, museums, and permission walls and shit like that. They tell me that there's no more structure. Like, you got guys in crews that have been in crews for 10, 15 years. They don't even communicate with each other anymore. They don't go to house parties. They don't do anything together anymore. They're just on their own crew. They're crew, but they're on their own painting, and they're not communicating. Where that shit would not have flew back in the day at all. If you were like not communicating with the crew, we were worried. Like, we would be like, what the fuck's up with this dude? Like, what's happening? We would think there's beef or something like that. And again, back then, the way we squashed a situation like that was to fight. And now I guess they're not fighting. I don't know if that's a thing anymore, but if we had an issue with someone in the crew, we squashed it with fighting, period. That's how we squashed it. Now they're not doing that. Now if they got a problem with each other, they just stay away from each other. They'll still bomb the same crew, but there's no camaraderie, there's no brotherhood anymore. And that's a sad thing. And for all you guys out there that are dealing with this, you're in a crew right now and you're not getting love from your brothers in the crew. I'm not going to tell you to drop your crew, because if you love your crew and you're all about that, then do you. Like, stay bombing, stay in your crew. But you guys need to reach out to each other and be like, yo, listen, I listened to Komon's blog and he was talking about this, and he's right. We should unify and get back together and link up again and show some support to each other, because it's important, man. It's very important, especially if you get locked up. See, when I was locked up back in the day and my brothers got locked up and shit like that, it's nice knowing that you can call one of your crew brothers and they're gonna come up and get you out. But now, who's doing that? Like, you gotta call your mom, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's nice knowing that if I had to go over here to this neighborhood right here for whatever reason, I can call my crew brothers to back me. Or if I get into a jam somewhere, I can call my crew brothers to come get me, no matter what it is. You know what I'm saying? If I get jumped by whoever, I know I can go back later on and burn down the garage and fuck up the old neighborhood because I got my crew with me. But if they don't have that no more, that's really sad, man. That's a sad thing for Chicago crews, and a sad thing for the graffiti culture. So just think about that, you know what I'm saying? So I don't want to keep you guys here all day. I'm going to do a twofer today. So like I said, this right here is TDM Thursday. Said a lot about my past and a lot about graffiti crew past and things like that. If you guys like it, you know what you got to do. Hit the subscribe, hit the like, comment. Anybody has any stories they want to share with me, or some stuff you want me to talk about? Because I heard a million things yesterday. Because I'm doing this blog, I talk to everybody now. And it's dope. I love it. You know what I'm saying? Actually, I love talking to everyone. But I get a lot of information, and it's hard to sleep because I'm constantly thinking about, like, man, what can I say? What can't I say? Because censoring is a real big thing. I didn't think I was going to be able to drop the Dark Riddle interview on YouTube. So I was like, man, it's going to be censored. It's going to be hard. But again, it was raw. It was facts. It was 100% unique to him. You know what I'm saying? And I want to do that more now that I think that Donald Trump is going to stop this whole censoring bullshit, this whole cancel culture bullshit. Now I think we can actually start talking for real, start talking the way that we talk, being who we are, talking about how it used to be, in the way we used to talk. That's how I wrote my first book. I wrote my book the way I used to talk. So as I was a 17, 18-year-old kid, the way I talked then is how I wrote. You know what I'm saying? Because that's important to show the evolution of us, show the evolution of me, evolution of you. Because it don't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter if you leave the hood or you're still in the hood. It doesn't matter who you are. You're going to evolve no matter what. You're going to either evolve with the neighborhood or you're going to evolve past the neighborhood, and you're going to be able to talk about it. You know what I'm saying? And show your strength. So that's what I got, yo. Peace out to everybody. Peace, love, and flower power. Thank you for tuning in to Komon Underground. I'll talk to you guys later. Love.